Yeah. I don't think there's much to say about that, apart from Ed Herman and Mike Rodriguez having one of the most light heavyweight fights I've ever seen.
Oh my, I fucking loved that. We have to mention it at least.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Rodriguez finishing him 4 separate times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting kimmered.
Yeah. Ed Herman, I just loved him, sheepishly not acknowledging what he knew happened. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't even know why Bisping thought he had to address it. What the hell was Ed gonna say? And also, I don't see how it's really especially worthy of critique. The referee gave him a break. What's he's supposed to seppuku himself for honor?
Yes.
It's really silly expectations. People upset at him because the referee gave him a break and he didn't immediately go, There's a bunch of people who, they get free food at the McDonald's drive-thru and they're like, excuse me, you didn't take my credit card. You didn't charge me. Shut the fuck up. Take the free burger. All right, folks, welcome to another episode of Heavy Hands. I'm your host, Connor Rebush. With me, as always, is Phil McKenzie, and we are here today to discuss, mostly, I think, just this upcoming UFC card. They laughed at me, Phil. They laughed back in the day when I said, hey, someday these UFC cards are going to become more and more top-heavy until they're just like boxing cards. And, this is, I think, an example of when that is good. Because everything interesting here is mostly on the main card. But it's a pretty good main card for a fight night event. I mean, you can't deny that.
Yep. It is top to bottom, interesting, and weird.
Mm-hmm. What you mean to say is there is both welterweights and light heavyweights and middleweights.
Yeah.
It's got hitting all the marks.
And classic examples of the genre as well.
Of the middleweight / of the light heavyweight genre, certainly.
Yes.
Perhaps the light heavyweight.
And middleweights as well. I mean, who
it's
doesn't
true.
want to see how well Darren Stewart's immense insecurity goes up against Kevin Holland's insane insouciance.
Immense Kevin Holland-ness.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually ashamed. I was fixated on the other middleweight fight, which is Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert, which is very middleweight in its specialization of both fighters. Mm-hmm. And in the fact that Gerald Meerschaert is one half of the fight. But yeah, Holland Stewart. We got Walker Spahn is one of the dumbest light heavyweight matchups ever, which makes it pretty much on par with every other light heavyweight matchup that's ever been made. The aforementioned Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. Cowboy Cerrone, 4-fight losing streak. Never thought I would see that day. He's taking on Nico Price, who might beat him. And of course...
You definitely did see that day coming, though, right?
Well, yeah, it's true.
Because you knew that Cerrone was going to be someone who was going to destroy himself on the altar of money and thrills.
I think I got used to seeing it coming for so long. I never thought it would actually come.
Yeah.
Expecting it was a state of normalcy. Now that it's here, I don't know what to do with myself.
Good point.
And in the main event, Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley, or as the most vindictive boys online will call it, Tyron Woodley's 15th straight lost rounds. It's a good main card. It's weird. It really, I'm actually very pleased by it. It hits all the marks. It's got the bizarreness. It's got relevance right on top of that. And it's got some guaranteed action matchups as well. So I can't utter a word of complaint about this one, but I will not let that stop me. Should we start with the main event?
Go for it.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if we're going to have time. We'll probably mention some stuff of what happened last week. Probably one of our wrongest nights of prediction ever, Phil.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad in retrospect.
We really fucked up. I mean, if you're listening to this right now, this is your last chance to reconsider, because we're about to tell you some things about Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley that will soon be proven very wrong. All right? You still listening? Okay. The main event. Tyron Woodley. I still like Tyron Woodley, Phil. I find something very endearing about him. Yes, he does plenty of cringy and embarrassing things. He's sort of up his own ass. And his fights are incredibly boring most of the time, except for when they're very exciting. But I still like Tyron Woodley. And I think that probably has more, well, and there's also the fact that I obviously loathe Colby Covington. And I think that dynamic had more to do with my hesitation towards this matchup than really any level of like actual objective analysis. Because when I set those feelings aside yesterday and I sat down and watched some footage, I think about 5 seconds into whatever video I was watching, it hit me that yes, Colby Covington is going to beat Tyron Woodley. He is exactly the wrong style matchup, especially for Woodley at this stage in his career where he seems to have utterly lost all of his confidence. And the slim chance that Woodley will come in with some like justifiably race-motivated rage towards Colby Covington and that will inspire him to the other kind of Woodley performance, even that I don't feel confident would result in a win. What are your feelings about the matchup?
It's one of these ones where I think there's a few caveats to keep in mind. It's not a complete style nightmare for Woodley.
Sure.
But yeah, you have to find yourself saying, I mean, Woodley is just not. I cannot imagine a way in which Woodley seriously wins rounds in this fight.
Yeah.
Unless he has like incredible, like knockdown type, almost finishing him kind of Maynard Edgar type sequences.
Yeah.
This is the only way I can see him winning rounds.
It's the only solution. The only solution to the doomed dynamic for him is like output. I don't know, like, how is he is output or extreme accuracy? It's bizarre because I feel like most of the time when we talk about a fighter being in a position where they have to fight perfectly, it's because they're at a massive athletic disadvantage. Like I remember saying that about Michael Bisping before the Luke Rockhold rematch. If some listeners will recall one of the most legendary times that I was proven right in an argument on this show. And one in a long series of vindications. Yeah, but usually when I'm like, I can see a path to victory, but they have to fight the perfect fight, that almost always applies to the person who is suffering under a big athletic disadvantage. And it's really weird that that is the case for Tyron Woodley only because of his style. Because of the way he fights, and I don't think he can convince himself to fight any other way except for 30 seconds at a time, he has to land the perfect shots. And if he doesn't, he's going to spend every other moment of the fight losing.
Yeah.
Not very forgiving.
Yeah. Covington puts out an absolute ton of output. Covington works incredibly hard in the clinch and will happily chase the clinch. And, you know, we've seen how much Woodley relies on being able to basically scare people off just outworking him in the clinch, going all the way back to the Jake Shields fight.
Right.
A fight which, you know, as we've said where we rewatched it, it's pretty clear that Woodley probably should have won it. But also that, you know, there were clear seeds of how you could, like, defuse him in that performance. The Gilbert Burns was absolutely atrocious, where he just pretty much froze up.
Yep.
Against, I think, a more forgiving style matchup than Kamaru Usman. He wasn't fighting a strength and cardio disadvantage against, like he did against Usman.
Right.
You know, Burns has been overpowered and beaten up by control wrestlers in the past. No reason to assume why Woodley should have been quite so gun-shy, but he was. I think the only real things he has going for him is that Covington is nominally a southpaw. So like the lane for the right hand will be lined up a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think Woodley will be more likely to throw it. But yeah, I mean, can you really bank on it? And I just don't think you can. And I'm nominally a southpaw because I've heard on the Twitter that they are, I think one of Covington's coaches has said that he's not actually a southpaw, and they've been training him to fight more orthodox. So,
Is
if he comes out, and he's always had a very
Go on, sorry.
Sorry, what's that?
No, go on, please.
He's always had a very active lead hand.
Yeah.
And, you know, if he just comes out and keeps a left jab in Woodley's face, you know, we've seen from McDonald that terrible, you know, Woodley can be shut down by that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Add into the fact that, Covington is a very, he's a very snappy, kind of quick kicker.
Mm-hmm.
Likes to throw head kicks a lot. He can potentially like keep the right hand home. And
he's basically going to combine
the
Rory McDonald and Jake Shield game plans.
Yeah. And and he doesn't need to have quite the same worry that Wonderboy did of Woodley countering his kicks with takedowns, because because he's a much better wrestler, and B, because again, the pace thing. Even if Woodley is going for takedowns and grappling with him,
right?
I just don't think he has the pace to, you know, it's spending endurance that he doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah, and tactically, like that is a lane you would want to see Woodley go down. Like, use your wrestling. Covington is, because he's so output focused, he is pretty susceptible. He's one of those wrestlers who's pretty susceptible to a shot takedown. Like the opportunities will be there, but then what's going to happen? He's not going to hold him down as easily as he did Darren Till. There's going to be a scramble. If Covington gets back up, are we expecting Tyron Woodley to repeat that process several times over the course of a fight? I don't think so. I mean, I think he actually has the stamina.
If he did, it would be incredible. I mean, as in,
yeah,
it would be very, very funny.
Oh yeah, that would rule if he just out wrestled Covington. That would fucking slap.
Yeah.
But he's got it's
hard to see it happening.
Yeah, he's got like a mental block. Tyron Woodley, I've mentioned this on the show plenty of times before. But back when we did an interview with him, he said, he openly said that he's concerned about his stamina. That informs the way he fights. I think he has the stamina, I'm sure, to afford a much different kind of style, but it doesn't matter, because how he feels is that he can't afford to waste it. And that is the undercurrent of Tyron Woodley's game. He's too worried about destroying himself to really go out there and destroy his opponent most of the time. And you just can't fucking have that mindset against Colby Covington. I don't know. Yeah, and maybe I did want to say about that supposed comment from an ATT coach, I'm guessing, of Covington's. Is he saying that Covington
Covington isn't at ATT anymore, is he?
You might be right. He's somewhere else, because everyone didn't.
Not sure.
No one liked him. He's at MMA Masters now. Interesting. Expect even more of a weirdly disjointed kicking game from Covington going forward. Seems to be the specialty of that camp.
Yeah, well, that's going to be strange. Yeah.
Was he saying that Covington? I don't know how I feel about that comment. Covington's not a southpaw, but he is. That's how he fights. You know what I mean?
But in his day-to-day life, he's hand dominant, I think they're saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, but left-handed and southpaw are not the same thing. There's plenty of right-handed southpaws. It's a stance. It's a style. And I don't know. Covington, I'm guessing, is a left-handed or a right-handed southpaw in the same way that many, many wrestlers are. So that is something interesting. If he comes in here
Yes.
orthodox, that it will likely have some effect in his wrestling. But I don't know that his success in this fight ever depended on his ability to like penetrate and drive through a shot. I don't think it matters. In fact, it would probably be a perfectly workable trade for him to focus instead on coming in with more volume, more just vision occupying volume. The question is, if he does that, as an adaptation to Woodley's southpaw thing, that makes a lot of sense. It will probably work perfectly. But the guy already does not have great defense. And that is always the thing that suffers most immediately in a new stance. And let's be real, I don't know that Tyron Woodley, he doesn't have a career of knocking out southpaws in particular, does he? I think most of his knockouts have been orthodox fighters.
I mean, he hurt, I think, what's it called? Wonderboy when he was southpaw, and I think it was...
Yeah, and Lawler,
and obviously Lawler, yeah.
Josh Koscheck was an orthodox fighter. He caught him countering the right hand with a right hand.
Yeah. Till?
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's a reason to believe that it makes sense. I don't know though. Like if I'm a southpaw and I'm worried about getting knocked out by Tyron Woodley, I probably wouldn't be like, I'm going to change my stance just before the fight for the first time ever. And that's how I'm going to stop him having an advantage. But even so, I just think the general dynamic, it favors Covington too much. I can't count on Woodley to win a fight where he's going to be winning every moment, and will only win it if he snags like 1 to 3 incredibly decisive moments. I just can't count on him.
Yeah, unless something strange happens. Yeah, I mean, if Covington, for example, is actually genuinely damaged by that Usman fight, and and the orthodox thing is a symptom of that. Like he's like, man, I gotta, behind all the bravado, he's like, man, I gotta make some major changes here. And he just shits the bed in some way. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, just looking at Woodley and his latest fights, I mean, this has always been in him, but this is absolutely terrible. I couldn't pick him against anyone with Covington's like baseline level of wrestling, his level of toughness, and his pace.
Is Covington, is he a competitor? Calling back to your fighter classifications?
I think he's actually I think he is genuinely a fighter. But yeah, I think there's probably a lot of...
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of bordering on...
notoriously someone who got into trouble for fighting, right?
Yeah. He's kind of bordering on Lionheart, though, isn't he? Like, the thing is... It doesn't experience it in a lot of fights, but I see Colby Covington, like, he could have that moment of insecurity and uncertainty, but I think he's always dealing with that to some extent. Like, I see Colby Covington as a guy where you could, like, duct tape him to a chair and shut him in a room and come back 4 hours later and he would still be trying to Hulk his way out of the duct tape. Like, he would just be straining, like, that's his solution to difficulty, is to just like go red in the face and try really hard. So I don't know. Even if he comes in with all these like newly inflamed insecurities and everything, I think he's still all that's gonna mean is that he's just gonna go be really, really determined to do as much as he can to win this one. He has a certain amount of stick-to-itness. All right, well, there's the main event. Truly an ignominious end for Tyron Woodley, and really weird in that it didn't come in the form of like Henan Brow's sudden decline or any of the others we thought of. It just kind of, I mean, I guess it came in a very predictable fashion of him just, people realizing that he's not doing anything and just starting to beat him. So really strange run if it does indeed play out that way. But let's take a break. When we come back, the co-main event is Cowboy Cerrone versus Nico Price. Before that, Khamzat Chimaev is back once again to take on Gerald Meerschaert in an interesting grappler versus grappler fight, and the rest of the main card from this upcoming fight night after this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
All right, welcome back to Heavy Hands. Talking about the co-main event of this upcoming card, which is UFC Covington versus Woodley, aka UFC on ESPN Plus 36, aka UFC Vegas 11, aka UFC Fight Night 178. Really great. Cowboy Cerrone has lost. I was shocked to see this, even though, of course, I knew it on some level. I've watched all of his recent fights. 4 in a row, the man has lost. And, yeah, I mean, I think I thought I saw this moment coming so many times previously in his career, that I'm kind of surprised that it's, like, actually here. And to be honest, he'll probably have a moment where he turns it all around and nets another 3 wins over, like, mostly meaningless opponents again. But for the time being, it's Cerrone on what looks like a definite downswing. And, Nico Price is, like, pretty bad at everything, to be honest, and, like, extremely hittable. And, he either gets completely smoked or he brutally myrtleizes you. And it's truly, like, has he ever had a decision?
Once.
One decision. When was it? It was before the UFC. Some guy named Willie Hosh. So it's, it's a dangerous sort of opponent for Cerrone. It seems like a sort of Cerrone classic, him just taking on some mostly, irrelevant action fighter. And, I think I've successfully resisted the temptation to think that the downslide is going to continue. Because if I think about it, the chances of Nico Price knocking Cerrone out in the only round when he ever really gets knocked out, the first, are not high enough to weigh against the fact that he is going to spend every moment of that fight that he's not knocking Cerrone out in Cerrone's kicking range, with not the footwork or the kicking game of his own or the boxing game or anything to negate that. And so it feels like Nico Price is a more defensively lax Al Iaquinta with much bigger power and longer arms and weirder rhythm and everything. But, like, he has to knock Cerrone out early, right? It would be one of the first how often has Cerrone been knocked out outside the first round? Not very often.
It was Masvidal.
Ferguson on a doctor stoppage.
Oh yeah, Ferguson.
Masvidal, but although he was knocked out in the first round against Masvidal, let's be real.
Oh. Yeah, was that? Yeah, it was the end of the first round, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, they brought him back out to be finished, but he was knocked out at the end of the first round.
Yeah. I remember him being knocked out twice, but I just couldn't remember which ones it was, which rounds it happened in. But yeah, no, other than that, I think that's it.
Yep, submitted by Ben Henderson in the first round. Jamie Varner, no. That was a technical decision because of foul. Yeah, it's basically only first round knockouts. And that's just lines up with who Donald Cerrone is. He's a guy where if you give him his slice of range and you can't put him away, even if he has a terrible start, like against Leon Edwards, say, he's going to get better over the course of the fight. He's going to find a rhythm. He's going to pick up on which attacks work against you and start playing other attacks off of that. You do not want to spend time aimlessly hanging around in kicking range, waiting for your opening. Yeah, that makes me favor Cerrone pretty confidently, actually, which is probably a terrible sign. But what do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've sort of had the same read as you on this one, and I think partially you've influenced me in that direction. So I'm going to blame you if Cerrone gets brutally knocked out.
I'm very persuasive.
Yeah, this is one of those. I mean, if you look down the list of people that Cerrone has lost to over his MMA career, I think it's very difficult to find anyone where you would be like, Oh yeah, at this point in his career, Cerrone would have, at some earlier point in his career when he was in his quote-unquote prime, Cerrone would have beaten this person. There's no one on the list of people that he's beaten that he's lost to that he ever would have beaten.
Or that he wouldn't have had the same chance of losing to again in the same exact fashion. Like, he might have beaten Darren Till if he made it out of the first round, but Darren Till versus any version of Cerrone would have been very likely to get that first round finish.
Yeah. And I think maybe, he could probably feasibly take a decision over Robbie Lawler in some worlds where Robbie Lawler, takes time off and gets kicked up a bunch. But yeah, there's no matchups where Cerrone has really surprised.
Been a very reliable fighter.
The people he's supposed to beat, he beats. People he's supposed to lose to, he loses to.
Mm-hmm.
And Nico Price is someone that he should beat. If he loses this fight, I think it is a very significant, indication that he's declined. And I think the reason why you find yourself surprised that there's 4 losses and why I kind of found myself also agreeing with that, is because of that Anthony Pettis fight, which fits into a pattern that we've seen with Cerrone, is that he goes on a short run of brutal stoppage losses and then comes back and just sort of looks like Don Cerrone again. Mm-hmm. He pretty much just looked like Don Cerrone against Anthony Pettis.
Yeah. And there's a gut reaction to that that's like, oh, it's not a good sign. You shouldn't be having this close of a fight with somebody in Anthony Pettis, who we all know has been shot forever. But the truth is that Anthony Pettis mopped Cerrone in their first fight. It's not an easy style matchup for him. I mentioned before that the key to whether he wins or not is, do you concede a slice of range where he's most effective? And Pettis does not. By design, Pettis competes in that kicking range very well. And so it was sort of like the trilogy with Bendo, where like just each time Cerrone just got a little more comfortable with it, but it was always a rough dynamic for him. So I honestly don't think it's too much of a black mark to have lost a decision to 2020 Anthony Pettis, because I think he's still, some semblance of the guy who was, Cerrone was supposed to lose to. Yeah, like you said.
And I think their physical declines. I think that there is a physical decline from Cerrone. Mm-hmm. We're not saying that when we're picking this fight, that like this is the same guy physically that he was like 5 to 10 years ago.
No,
I don't think either of us is saying that, but in the physical decline, I think helped because Cerrone is just a more functional fighter down the stretch than Pettis is. But yeah, it was still tough for him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as you said, Price is someone who just soaks up an absolute ton of damage.
Yep.
And Cerrone gets better over time. Price's ability to hurt literally everyone he fights at some point is very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting tuned up by Jeff Neal and still managed to hurt him. He was getting tuned up by Vicente Luque and still managed to hurt
Tim
him.
Means, who actually beat.
Yep.
And was getting completely owned by Tim Means before he turned that around with one shot.
Yeah. That he got finished by Luque and Neal, but those are real welterweights and considerably younger and in the prime, and pretty much in the prime of their careers.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I am going to pick Cerrone just because Price he's just too plodding.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't, if he's just going to box with Cerrone, as I suspect he's pretty much going to. He does he throws weird front kicks and stuff like that. And we've seen that a guy like Ferguson can make that work, but he just doesn't, if he's going to box, he needs to do it with a higher pace and a more insistent, aggressive style than he has before.
Yeah.
And I just haven't really seen it.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Cerrone with big caveats, with a fairly large amount of caution.
Of course. We're dealing with thinner margins than ever before in Cerrone's career. And this is a guy who has always been susceptible to that surprise first round rush finish. But on the other hand, two of those losses you named to Luque and Neal. There was the other loss to Luque for Price as well. Those 3, they're all finishes, because when Price doesn't finish you, he gets finished. And while most of his wins or many of them, are in the first round. All of those finishes, all three of those finish losses are after the first round. It just seems like a pretty clear picture of what happens if Cerrone makes it out of the first. At least what direction the matchup will be headed in. And, yeah.
I mean, it's worth noting, like, the getting out of the first dynamic is very much present in the other direction as well, right? I mean, specifically, Price has really not fought good wrestlers. Cerrone leans on his wrestling quite a bit at welterweight. Despite not having fought good wrestlers, people take Nico Price down a lot. Did Jeff Neal finish him on the ground, or did he just beat him up there?
I think he knocked him down and beat him up there.
Yeah. But yeah, Randy Brown, before getting weirded out, was kind of crushing Price on the ground.
Yep.
So like if Cerrone repeats the Perry trick, or in fact the Medeiros trick, where he just comes out there and he just, because he's of the two, he's finished more people in the first round
compared to Price.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if he comes out and like he just starts marking up Price on the feet, and then Price comes forward and Cerrone just takes him down and submits him.
Yeah, that'll probably happen. I would
not be at all shocked.
That will probably happen, actually. I don't know if he'll submit him, but Cerrone takes everyone down as a point of principle, or tries to. And he will get Price down. I'm more confident of that than I am against most people.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a good matchup. You know, it's guaranteed fun to watch. But yeah, I don't see Price as like insistent enough early to make that first round win happen. And if he doesn't, he's still going to be dangerous. Cerrone, again, dealing with thinner margins than ever before in his career, but I gotta pick Cowboy. All right, let's move on then to Khamzat Chimaev versus Gerald Meerschaert. It's not a classic middleweight fight in that Khamzat Chimaev appears to be pretty good at MMA, but it really hits a lot of the other marks. We have weird, like hyper-specialized fighters here. One of them, Chimaev, or one of them in Meerschaert is like a classic slow-moving ginger, which is arguably the middleweight archetype. And he is, I realize I've been starting all of my predictions, all of these discussions with just a straight up head prediction. There's no teasing. You know what I mean? This is like this is like a low rent porn episode of Heavy Hands. There's no storyline. I'm just telling you right up front what you want to hear. And what I'm telling you here is that Gerald Meerschaert is going to lose this fight.
I am shocked.
I know, right? I think it'll be in some ways a helpful dispelling of a narrative that sometimes swirls around other, super aggressive top division players like Chimaev. I think in a way this is a chance for us to see what would have happened if on the way up, Khabib Nurmagomedov, whom Chimaev is rightly compared to, not just because of the beard, and the region of origin, but because their styles function in very similar ways. It's like a chance to see what would have happened if on the way up, Khabib had fought, like Joe Lozon, as you suggested before, Phil, or if he had managed to have that fight with Tony Ferguson. The appeal of an opponent like Meerschaert for a fighter like Chimaev, or a fighter like Lozon for Khabib is, well, what happens if they fight someone who doesn't give a shit, that they're trying to grapple them, whose game is not built around, no, please don't grapple me, please don't get on top of me, but is rather like, what can I do when you get to your good position? And I feel very strongly that we're about to discover that the answer to that is it doesn't work at all. That having no regard for position is in fact the last thing you want to do against a positional grappler. Sort of like wanting to know, again, there is some appeal in saying, for example, what happens if extremely aggressive pressure puncher A meets somebody who has zero defense and just swings. but mostly like, we know what happens. The good fighter whose game is built around process wins. That's why you fight with a process. And Chimaev has a very solid process that he has yet to have it shown to him that it ever can't work. He's super confident in it and goes for that takedown right away, gets to his good position right away. Mearshart's not going to stop him. He's going to try and play that game. He's going to lose.
Yeah. So yeah, we watched some of Mearshart versus Hermansson, and it was very worrying,
yes.
Let's say. Because this was against the best top position player that Mearshart had fought to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And his response to, he got pushed into the cage and instantly taken down, and then made a series of terrible decisions where he would pull guard, jump guillotine, basically kept re-engaging in the ground game in the worst ways until he got finished.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it just looks like the ground game is going to be a death sentence. Chimaev is going to move to knee on belly. He's going to beat him up from top position, and then maybe if I think there's a solid chance he'll just bait Chimaev into like a DAS, or maybe he'll just mount him like Mearshart did. I think there's things to be worried about. I think there's things to be worried about for Chimaev on the feet. He still is 2 years into his career. He fights with a lot of confidence. Mearshart is still, despite being very slow, he is very big and a straight puncher.
Mm-hmm.
I could genuinely, and Chimaev does not really. He's very like early Khabib. He's all commitment and just throwing himself full speed into stuff.
Yep.
So Mearshart is just like a big long puncher, may just crack him. Relatively recently we saw him. I can't remember who said this on Twitter, but I apologize. We saw Mearshart doing the Stipe versus Cormier game plan against Deron Winn, just better.
You heard it here first. Gerald Mearshart better than Stipe Miocic.
Yes, that's what we're saying on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there's a chance, like there's a serious chance. Not a massive one. Mearshart isn't a huge puncher, but like Chimaev really throws himself into stuff. He's still very inexperienced, but
oh yeah,
if he Aaron P code, I think he's just gonna carve Mearshart up on the ground.
Yeah, the opportunity for that is there, but like the problem is that almost certainly, most likely, that early aggression from Chimaev does lead right to a clinch wrestling or just a straight up shot wrestling situation, and we know what Mearshart does in response to that. I'll be surprised and impressed and pleased if Mearshart feels that, and his first response is actually to, work in the clinch and work to stay in a good position and then break away and go back to striking. Like, that seems like a great path to victory for him in this fight, and just have the ground game as a backup. But to do that would be defying an entire career's worth of accrued experience. Like, that's not what Mearshart does. In fact, we talked about the Jack Hermansson loss, the most recent example of him against a good top position player. But if you scroll back through his record, you've also got a first round submission loss to Anthony Lapsley, another strong wrestler, a first round submission loss to Herbert Goodman. I believe he's a wrestler as well. And a first round submission loss before that to Kenny Robertson, also an accomplished wrestler and submission grappler. So, really, I think the success of Mearshart's style, or the key to it working, is against people who don't want to take him down. It's the Verdum defense. It's like, well, I'm going to fight my B game against this guy because it's too dangerous to take him to the floor. People who are really confident in their top games and just take him down anyway, they tend to actually thrash him because his game is built on fundamentally disregard for position. And that is all Chimaev's game is about. All it's about is sitting on a leg, getting that cross wrist, like Dagestani handcuff type control, forcing you into these positions where you are locked down. You have only one way to go, and going that way opens you up to another step of progression from the guy on top. And that is not, it is just not a game where Meerschaert's style of grappling even has opportunities. He's not going to be stuck in guard against someone who's like playing that game with him, you know, allowing him to grab wrists or trying to time strikes. He's going to be going against someone who is, from the moment he takes him down, not going to be fucking with positions where Meerschaert has any offensive options. He's going to go as quickly as possible into a pin or a riding position and break Meerschaert down bit by bit. So, again, I'm probably setting myself up for an embarrassment here, being so confident, but the dynamic of this fight seems pretty clear that Meerschaert is going to play Chimaev's game the wrong way.
Yeah, can't really disagree. And also, you know, the last time Gerald Meerschaert fought an athlete like Chimaev, who nonetheless tends to throw himself forward and do big explosive things, he got instantly knocked out.
Yeah, there's that too. Chimaev, would you be shocked if Chimaev came out and just knocked Meerschaert out?
No.
Yeah.
Not in the least. He's a very slow man.
Yeah, and Chimaev is, I mean, you also mentioned Meerschaert's size. He's 6'1", 77 inch reach. That's according to Wikipedia. Oh God. Phil, before I started reading from Wikipedia, I should have realized that Chimaev does not have a Wikipedia page. He's the new Justin Gaethje.
Yep.
Well, according to Tapology, Chimaev is 6'2" with a 75 inch reach. I mean, he's the same size, but more athletic. Much more. So, yep. Once again, it seems fairly cut and dry. Let's take a break. When we come back, we have two of the weirdest fights ever matched, I think. Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spahn is weird in a very bad way. A way that I don't even want to think about. We've honestly spent the entirety of the show up to this point sort of putting off figuring out what the fuck we're going to say about Johnny Walker and Ryan Spahn. And then after that, a fight that is weird in a very, very good way. Kevin Holland versus Darren Stewart. After this.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. You can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher, things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to Heavy Hands. We've spent far too long trying to figure out what the hell we're going to say about this next fight. Johnny Walker versus Ryan Spahn. There is at once so much, too much to say, and nothing at all. Nothing insightful, nothing meaningful. I mean, I think what it really comes down to is the first words we said about this fight at the top of the show is that it is an immensely light heavyweight style of fight, which, as longtime listeners will know, is always a euphemism for bad. It's bad. I'll say right here, I'm not going to pretend to be objective. I told you so. All of you out there about Johnny Walker, I fucking told you he's not good. But the other thing I want to say that is also not objective at all is that I hate watching Ryan Spahn fight. I hate it, Phil. I find his style, such as it is, intensely frustrating. I hate the predictable plodding movement. I hate the fact that his game is 90% negative space with no feints, no attempts to deceive or draw out. It's seriously like MMA in 2003. It's really underdeveloped. And therefore aimless, processless. And it feels like despite all that, he has what should be a very clear path to victory over Johnny Walker. Because as we were thankfully, reminded before he got too far, in the UFC, Johnny Walker is bad on the ground. He does not like being pressured, and he's bad on the ground. And we saw that in both of his last two fights. Or one element at least of each of those in his last two fights. So Ryan Spahn, he's a capable wrestler. He's a big, strong dude. It should be pretty clear to just pressure Johnny Walker into the fence, take him down as quickly as possible. But like I said, the man is aimless, and I have no faith whatsoever he's going to do that. All right, Phil, I've done you a tremendous favor talking about this so much already. Now you tell me something about this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Spahn doesn't even have the problem of being, he doesn't even have the distinguishing feature of being, like, particularly bad anywhere, so that you can get a good idea He's just completely formless, because, as you said, sometimes he will wrestle, sometimes he will strike, sometimes he will try and submit people, but it's really difficult to, like, build any visible game out of any of this stuff. But yeah, I mean, and that is, I think, the key, because he just leaves big openings of not doing stuff, and he can't stick to a single approach. Like, Sam Alvey is the classic IQ test, and this is an aging Sam Alvey, where you should just be able to solve him and then keep him solved for the rest of the fight. Even a million-year-old little nog was able to do this. And Spahn just could not keep his eyes on the road.
Nope.
He got himself into trouble. He couldn't decide whether he wanted to have, like, a control wrestling performance against Alvey, which seemed stupid, or whether he just wanted to, like, throw 1-2s and head kicks at him. So, I mean, I think he could wrestle Walker and would be well advised to, but honestly, I don't trust him to have, as I said in the break, I don't trust him to have the focused, round-winning, professional mentality of Nikita Krylov.
Yeah. It's like, what if, it's like, what if, like, it's like, I don't know, some bizarre negative of the Chimaev-Mearshart dynamic. Because Johnny Walker is a Mearshart. He's finish oriented. He's always looking for that finish above all else, above position, above anything. He just wants to fucking put you away. And, it's like, now we get to see how that style works against the antithesis of the Chimaev game plan, which is all ironclad process, all position, all control. It's all like, it's like a min-max fighting style, and Ryan Spahn has, despite having many of the advantages to play that game, I don't trust him to actually play any of it consistently. And so, yeah, this is where that finishing style actually flourishes, is when you just leave lots of empty space, waiting on your opponent to make a mistake. And if your opponent is willing to make a very violent mistake, that can be a terrible idea. You're going to let them knock you out. I think the chances are high that Johnny Walker's going to knock Ryan Spahn out. I don't know, man. Like, that Sam Alvey fight, it was so bad. It was so bad. It was, somebody recommended that we watch that, right? We had, like, forgotten that it ever existed.
Yep. It was either you or Zane.
So I think it was a listener of maybe of the Vivisection or something, or of this show, who told us to go check that one out. But like, yeah, Ryan, it's a very clear path to beat Sam Alvey. There's like, and that path has nothing to do with taking him down in the clinch, which like no one succeeds in doing. Like, Sam Alvey has always had really good takedown defense. And it also does not succeed in exchanging with him in the pocket. You literally just stay really far away. Whenever you're not inside, stay really far away. And Spahn couldn't do it. He just kept loading. It's baked into his style. Everything is the same degree of power. Every shot is the same degree of power and load up. Whether it's a jab or an overhand right, it has the same rhythm, the same tells. Everything comes from this like really front foot heavy, static, flat-footed stance. So like, Spahn never gets into range before throwing. He's always throwing while making that big telegraphed step into range. And so it's super easy not to get caught by that unless you are, as unfortunately most of his opponents are, also a light heavyweight. It should be pretty easy to get away from those kinds of attacks. You can just, you always know what Spahn's doing and you never know why he's doing it. So there's no, I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. It's like there's no facade. There's no nuance or complexity to the game. There's just a lot of emptiness. And, I think this is probably one of those occasions. Who else has beat Spahn in the past? Carl Roberson.
Yeah, surprisingly few people.
Guy who takes big time advantage of, single moments. Robert Drysdale, also a finisher. I mean, there are a couple of decision losses actually, but 3 of these 5 losses are finishes, and that doesn't surprise me. I think when Spahn loses, it's usually going to be a finish because it's going to come against guys who don't give a fuck about the threat of his wrestling, the threat of his power, the threat of his size. What they instead see is a guy in front of them who's not doing enough, and is not making them worry, is not making them react. It's just giving them time to figure out how to put him away. I think Johnny Walker will flourish in such a dynamic. That is assuming that his game has gotten significantly better, as I assume it must have at SBG Ireland.
Oh, indeed. I mean, why wouldn't it?
Truly the fighter made for SBG Ireland. Okay.
In some ways he kind of is, but yeah, let's not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, we're skipping Mackenzie Dern versus Randa Marcos for whatever reason, even though it is a good fight. But let's say just a couple quick words on Kevin Holland versus Darren Stewart. I'm going to let you take this one away.
I mean, just an amazing, as I said at the opening of the show, just an amazing psychological matchup here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those rare people. I genuinely like Darren Stewart.
Yeah.
I find him to be, quite an endearing Lionheart in his own way. He gets in his own, and in that sense, he gets in his own way a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very powerful, surprisingly physically overwhelming fighter who nonetheless is fighting against some notable technical deficiencies, particularly in his grappling. And also, clearly with some major insecurity issues.
Yeah.
Which means he's sort of been able to panic his way into quite a few, surprising, violent and effective wins.
Mm-hmm.
And also it means that he's had some incredibly tense and ugly decisions, that absolutely horrific Bevon Lewis fight.
Yes. Abysmal.
Just an absolute shocker.
He's like Uriah Hall without all the flash.
Yeah.
And
with a completely backwards striking game.
Yes.
He is an inside, a squat inside striker.
Mm-hmm.
I find him genuinely quite intriguing to watch. And with his sort of level of insecurity and panic against Kevin Holland's horrific nonchalance,
mm-hmm.
I'm very curious to see how he reacts, whether it drives him into a panicked berserker fury or whether he just decides to clam up. Because what we've seen in recent fights, I think it's fairly clear that Holland is going to be able to mark Stewart up quite a lot from the outside in the early going of this fight.
Absolutely.
Specifically the last couple of fights we've seen from him. Admittedly against a much lower tier of competition.
Yeah, but how much worse is Joaquin Buckley than Darren Stewart, technically? Not much.
I mean, but physically.
No, Buckley he's a pretty physical guy. That's a man who can throw full power counter combinations for 3 rounds without getting tired. He's a physical guy. I don't know. I think he's more or less on a par. Stewart's just been in the UFC, but he's definitely been a win some, lose some fighter in the UFC.
Yeah. I guess, you're right. Buckley is he's super athletic, but Stewart has MMA physical gifts. Namely, he's insanely durable. He's one of those guys who gets like visibly upset by being hit, but is not actually hurt particularly bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it went so downhill for Shabazian against him.
Uh-huh.
It's that eventually Shabazian just sort of panicked Stewart into whooping his ass in the third.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Holland. I don't think that's a controversial pick, especially, given how much we love Holland on this show. But, it will be interesting. Particularly if Holland chooses to grapple and clinch with Stewart, which he has been doing lately. Stewart is one of those guys who doesn't have particularly fantastic takedown defense of his own, but is like a surprisingly decent offensive wrestler, and Holland, as we all know, tends to get a bit too comfortable trying weird stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, got to pick Holland. But I think it could get strange in the third round if Holland's like getting too pleased with himself and Stewart just gets backed into the corner and goes nuts.
Yeah. There's a chance of that. I would say the fact that a lot of Stewart's best moments in the feed actually happen in the clinch is not a particularly great sign for him.
Mm-hmm.
Holland's pretty good in that range. He's one of those tall guys who realizes how useful height can be. I tend to agree across the board. Like, I just think Darren Stewart's, again, like Ryan Spahn, there's too much empty space. I keep saying that. Perhaps what I should say is, he does not seize the initiative often enough. Initiative is very important in fighting. Whether you are the pressure fighter, you're like blatantly seizing the initiative by just insisting on coming forward and doing stuff, or if you're the counter fighter and you're more subtly gaining the initiative by trying to get your opponent to do stuff. Initiative is the key to any style's success, which is why Tyron Woodley is going to lose in the main event. It's why I picked against Ryan Spahn in the last one we talked about. It's why I'm going to pick Kevin Holland here. Darren Stewart has areas where he's really dangerous. Kevin Holland is willing to go everywhere, so he'll probably get to those areas at least a few times. But at the end of the day, he's going to let Kevin Holland start establishing his fight early. And yeah, we've increasingly seen how bad an idea that is. I just want to say that Kevin Holland's fight with Joaquin Buckley was one of the greatest things I've ever seen, and Kevin Holland is a fighter made for the silent arena era.
Oh, yes.
There is no one better designed for this bizarre period of UFC history where everything's happening in a completely quiet room. I just want to give you a brief transcript that I happen to have here of some of the things he said to Joaquin Buckley. Good man. He said good man to Joaquin Buckley about 10,000 times. Good man, good man. I thought you wanted to talk, said Holland. What happened? I thought you wanted to talk. Buckley responds by smashing him in the nuts. One more kid would be nice, he says to Buckley. Please don't hit me there too many times. I want to use them. The referee says, stop talking. Stop talking right now, even though that's not a rule. He just doesn't want to hear it anymore. Holland goes to Buckley.
The best thing is that, the referee is not asking him as an official. Yeah. He's just asking him as a human being. Please shut the fuck up.
Please stop talking. He goes up. They have a few more exchanges. Buckley is throwing a lot of looping left hands, and Holland keeps subtly suggesting that he should straighten his punches. And Buckley does. Holland blocks it. I think it was a left cross to the body, but he says, there you go. You're straightening it out. That's a better Buckley. Buckley tries it again and misses really wide. And Kevin Holland says to him, good man. Good man. So that's Kevin Holland. He's made for this era. But I do think that there is a genuine insight in there as to how it feels to be fighting either by design, like Joaquin Buckley is very much a counter puncher. And so he allowed Holland the initiative, or by how it feels to trick yourself into giving Kevin Holland the initiative, is that even verbally, he's constantly jabbing you and annoying you. If you're an insecure fighter who's not seizing the direction of the fight, Kevin Holland is going to pester you nonstop. And I just don't see that. I don't see it being the kind of bullying that gets the best out of Darren Stewart. Like if I'm going to compare him again to Uriah Hall, there's two kinds of Uriah Hall fights. Uriah Hall is the same insecure man in every single one of them. But if you push him, you will wake up, you will channel that insecurity into like an effective response. If you just annoy him, he might surprise you at some moment, but he's not really going to find like a path to winning the fight. He's just going to be annoyed. I see this the same way.
So what you're saying is that you want to see Kevin Holland versus Uriah Hall after this?
Actually, yes. I really would like to see that. Wouldn't you?
Yes, I do now.
Right? I mean, it's Kevin Holland, so I he started to get good. I've had to somewhat change my dynamic. I now actually do care about him winning or losing. But I still think that if he were just jawing with Uriah Hall for 2.5 rounds and then got knocked out with a wheel kick, I would be able to suppress my disappointment because it feels like just a perfect result for that matchup. Yeah, I want to see that.
Yeah, because he'd still be living his best life if he did that.
He knew it would happen. He knew it could have happened. No one here is disappointed or surprised, really. So that is a very solid main card. Based on the way that I ended up discussing that, a lot of them do feel a little predictable, to be honest. But they're still fights I care about seeing, which just goes to show that relevance really is the most important thing. I know these fighters. I'm interested in these storylines. I'm invested. So it's good. Do we want to say a couple words just before we wrap up about anything that happened last weekend, since we spent all episode previewing?
I think we both agreed that the decision in Hill-Waterson was...
It was bad.
It was pretty bad. I don't think those rounds were very hard to score.
No.
I think you get 3 fairly clear rounds for Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Just 1, 2, and 5. And you could give her 3 if you really wanted to as well. Yeah. Didn't think it was great, but...
One of the judges gave 4 rounds to Waterson?
Yeah, that was weird.
How is that possible?
But yeah, it was sort of classic Jackson Wink gamesmanship.
Yep.
With loud KIs and grappling control and as I think I said on Twitter, there was a moment where Hill finished an exchange and then looked tired for a bit, and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
She's lost the decision. And then I hated myself.
In fact, I think what you really said was you saw that moment and then immediately followed by Michelle Waterson yelling really loudly and running forward with a combination, none of which landed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
Then you were like, I see what's happening.
Oh no. Yeah.
I understand what the judges are seeing now.
But other than that, I think the main moment of yesterday's card, it has to be Ed Herman reenacting his very own Edge of Tomorrow / All You Need Is Kill moment against Mike Rodriguez, where he got finished multiple times and then came back into the fight and submitted Mike Rodriguez with an awesome straining, slow ginger kimura, which looked fantastic. And this was one of the best light heavyweight fights in all the ways that light heavyweight can be good, i.e. funny and silly.
100%. I do not disagree at all. I heartily second all of those statements. Ed Herman, both ironically and unironically, turns in the most entertaining fights consistently. I love watching Ed Herman fight. This was like an absolute shit show, but you also have to be genuinely impressed by Ed Herman. That's what I love about this. It was a light heavyweight fight, but it was also just like Ed Herman fought as good a fight as he could have. He did a great job. And
yeah. Normally when people get finished in fights,
they
go on to get finished again. Like Jim Miller versus Donald Cerrone, or Donald Cerrone against Jorge Masvidal.
Right. Yeah. he got finished twice
Mm-hmm.
and then won. I don't understand people being upset at Ed Herman for what happened with that referee stoppage. Like, it was not a low blow. What was Ed Herman supposed to do? Like, if you were in Ed Herman's position, would you have corrected the referee? Oops, sorry, ref, I looked at the replay. Actually, I didn't get hit low. Let's resume. No. You take all the time that was given to you. Which clearly was a good idea. It worked. I do want to say, like, it's actually really impressive to me that Mike Rodriguez, like, that fight gives me more, hope for him going forward. Clearly still the ground game is a glaring hole. That when people get him to that phase, that needs to be shored up. But I picked Ed Herman in this fight because of, the Zane Simon rule, of not picking against OGs. When you have a mirror match, you just pick
Is this a mirror match?
Well, in the sense that both of these guys are, beasts in the clinch, that they're both like Thai clinch guys.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there are varying degrees of mirror match, but certainly one of the main things that had me picking Herman was that when Rodriguez is really successful, it's in the clinch, and that's Ed Herman's best phase. And he's been good in that phase forever. So he's probably going to find some tricks or whatever. He's going to annoy. It didn't work out that way. This was not like like an Elkins versus Skelly type thing, which is the original always pick the OG fight, as I recall. In that, like, Darren Elkins, or that Chaz Skelly invited Darren Elkins to play his own A game and then suffered for it. Mike Rodriguez beat Ed Herman in the clinch. It was in fact the other reason I picked Herman, his well-roundedness, combined with some very cheeky, taking advantage of the referee's decision that actually got him the win. But, the OG-ness didn't matter. And what I'm trying to say is that, Mike Rodriguez has a pretty good clinch game for a light heavyweight. Cause he was genuinely, he was playing that whole pick your poison thing beautifully with Herman. Like, I think at least on 2 occasions he hit him with horrific elbows after getting Herman to, like, reach to block a knee, or getting him to try and counter the double collar ties, with, lower body clinch moves. And yeah, the way he set up those elbows was lovely. He did a great job up until the moment that he lost. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was a pretty entertaining card, to be honest. Some really surprising moments. Roxanne Modafferi got the damn thing done. We were dead wrong about our boy Kama Worthy, who I have now decided I don't like him anymore. I'm over it.
Yeah, that one I really realized afterwards. I said in the B staff predictions, I made this pick for Kama Worthy, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong now.
Yeah, I had the same feeling.
Yes, he's really gotten knocked out a lot by just determined power punchers who get punched and then fire back immediately.
Yeah, for me it was while talking to that fucking idiot Zane Simon. I was like, I was saying to him, I was like, so me and this fucking idiot Phil McKenzie were agreeing that Kama Worthy's going to win this fight. And he persuaded me otherwise, but I try not to waffle, so I stuck with my pick, and we have suffered for it.
Piece of shit.
Sijara Eubanks beat Julia Avila? That's big. I mean, Avila's like a legit women's bantamweight prospect. So it was a good card, to be honest, which I think we pretty much said going in, and hopefully this upcoming one, aligns with our expectations in as satisfying a way. But that's it. We're done with this episode. Thank you all so very much for listening. We love you, every single one of you, especially you. And before we wrap up, anything to plug? I gotta be honest with you, Phil, I haven't read any MMA writing this week.
Nope, nothing for the moment. Although, I believe next week, I may have some actual writing to plug.
Hell yeah.
I think, me and, David Castillo are back on the previews.
Oh, fuck yeah, really?
Yep. I think it's only for main events it's only for, UFC pay-per-views, basically. But yeah, I think we should be back.
Wow.
Toe-to-toe previews will be back again.
David has ascended to Joe Rogan status.
Exactly.
That's beautiful. He deserves it. I'm very excited for that. I always love those pieces from you guys. And like many MMA retirements, it didn't go away for as long as I thought it might have. Just couldn't set the gloves down for good. Okay, well, keep looking forward to that, folks. I'm also working on that transcript, as you may have guessed, was from an article I was working on Kevin Holland. So maybe I will get that out this week.
Hell yes.
Cause I wrote something about Chito Vera and it turned him into a top contender. So I think I can do the same if I pick the right moment to celebrate the weirdness of Kevin Holland. Otherwise, I feel like I had something else to mention. Oh, that's right. Phil and I are going to try our absolute hardest to get a heavy bag done as a bonus episode. We have a bunch of questions piled up on the Patreon, so we are going to try to sit down for as long as it takes really to knock out all of them. So if you have a question asked on the Patreon that hasn't been answered, make sure you check that out. If you are a subscriber or patron at the $5 level and you have not asked a question, then you should send one to us and we will try to get to them later this week. Otherwise, make sure you go on Twitter, and while you are searching for Phil at Evil Greg Jackson and me at Boxing Bush, you should find at Pulgas Boxeo. All right? What you should do is you should harass this man. Don't worry about who he is. He deserves it. He's asked for it, and he's currently in possession of a 4-hour rambling edition of the Historical Perspective, which is now fully his responsibility to listen to and edit. So make sure you go to at Pulgas Boxeo, and I'll spell it for you. Pulgasboxeo. And you call him a cunt, and you tell him to finish that fucking Historical Perspective. All right? All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this week's episode of Heavy Hands. We hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did. Next week, we'll be back to talk to you about... it's almost upon us, Phil. Adesanya versus Bohashinya, the king of the bitches, is about to claim his throne. I'm very excited. The trash talk has been great. None of it has made me want to cover my face and hide under the bed. It's all been great. I've loved it. And I'm genuinely very excited to talk about it next week. So look forward to that. Until then, if you all came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.
Also, Kyle has changed his Twitter handle, right?
What?
I thought I'd let you just spell the whole thing out.
You piece of shit. What is it now?
It's at Mangamush.
What? Why?
Because he wanted to upset you, and he was sick of you, sicking internet randoms on him.
That can't be the reason. Kyle likes me.